Five Nights at Freddy's 2 movie was bold with new lore, unexpected scenes, and a shocking cliffhanger. It sets us up with a film franchise that has a lot of potential with the new recent hit and great performance of the second film. But there are children in the series, missing ghost children that seem to vanish into the shadows, but they just might be the key to everything we've been second-guessing ourselves about. The third film is anticipated to come out sometime in the future, meaning we can't go wrong with some theorizing. Actually, correction, we can't go right without some theorizing. Hello Theorists, and welcome back to Investigative Game Speculation, where today we discuss the third FNAF film and predict what is going to happen in the crystal ball of theorizing. The FNAF 2 film was long, detailed, and even solved some of the greatest mysteries like William Afton's son, for instance. But of course, it creates more questions than answers, so in this video, I'm going to attempt to predict what is going to happen in the third film based on the events of the second film, with the movies mirroring the game lore in a way, but also being its own distinct individual universe of lore. So let's look into the deep, vast void of the FNAF movie timeline and let's make some theories. Before we get into the structure of the third FNAF film, we are going to need to understand what happened in the third FNAF game. And I'm sure a lot of you guys already understand this part of the third FNAF game, but all the things I say in these few moments are going to be very critical to the theories I made, so I'm going to explain them very briefly. FNAF 3 was set in 2023, which is 30 years after the first game. The main antagonist is Springtrap, aka William Afton. You play as a security guard in a place known as Fazbear Fright, the horror attraction. Your goal as the player is to lure Springtrap away from your office, as you have no defense with doors or lights, and have to instead use the audio lure or a laughing child sounding just like Balloon Boy to lure him away. In the third FNAF game, minigames are frequently shown that give us an idea of the lore regarding the missing ghost children. The balloons, cupcakes, and cake are largely seen as symbolical as the lost childhood and innocence that the 5 missing children had as a result of being murdered by William Afton. And the souls are clearly unresolved as of right now, left trapped inside the suits. That's the lore of the game, but now we need to use information to solve the FNAF 3 movie. When it comes to movies in the FNAF universe, they look really similar on the surface level if you put them together side by side, but a lot of parts of them differ significantly. So any knowledge I present about predicting the FNAF 3 movie is mostly going to be focused on paying close attention to patterns and events in the first 2 films, along with the actual game lore. So let me give my final prediction that is years before the movie even releases, and let's get started on predicting the timeline. In the second FNAF film, near the end, it is shown that the 5 children pass into the afterlife peacefully. This implies that in the third film, the minigames have a lower chance of being a central focus since the children have already found peace. It wouldn't make much sense for the children to return in this film since the blonde boy explicitly states that he and the others are moving on to the afterlife and could no longer control Afton. But the original animatronics aren't the only ones that could have become the Phantom, because I would argue that the toy animatronics will become the Phantom animatronics because all of them were brutally destroyed and deconstructed by the original animatronics, meaning that the spirits could have come out of them and become the Phantom spirits who now go to the only origin place they can make sense of, which is where William Afton is, and in turn, the Fazbear Fright horror attraction. Alongside the main Phantom animatronics, there is also the Phantom Puppet. But who exactly would the Phantom Puppet be? Are you ready for it, guys? 3, 2, 1, Vanessa. In the second movie, it left us at the end with a significant cliffhanger of her being possessed by the marionette. That implies that the marionette isn't quite done here. It would absolutely make sense for the puppet to further expand its lore and story, and for it to be shown in the third film near the attraction. And I believe that Vanessa will be the Phantom Puppet in the attraction, returning as a result of Charlotte's soul not being quite at rest. It would make perfect sense because in the lore of the FNAF 2 film, a young Vanessa is the best friend of Charlotte, and Charlotte was shown to be quite vengeful. Charlie even says one of the original Ultimate Custom Night lines to her in the second movie.
I don't hate you, but you need to stay out of my way.
In that case, where Marionette's plan to use and manipulate Abby started off smoothly but ultimately failed, the Marionette would likely shift strategies, taking control of Vanessa so that she can eventually become the Phantom Puppet, and she could haunt the horror attraction. However, there's one kid that has seemingly been left in the dark, and his name is Garrett. He has been absent in the entirety of the second film and has not really come back. So where has he been? Well, initially it was a common thought that Garrett was actually possessed by Golden Freddy or the Marionette, but it would be disproven since Golden Freddy was seemingly just the blonde kid the entire time and the Marionette was Charlotte Emily. So, Garrett really has just been missing this entire time. There is, however, one more animatronic that it has been believed that Garrett is, and that is Balloon Boy. Now that I think about this, it would make perfect narrative sense, because Garrett is going to be Phantom Balloon Boy. He is going to be the exact audio lure that the security guard is going to have to use to lure William Afton away, symbolizing how the kid William murdered is now going to haunt him. And now that we have Garrett plus Springtrap narrowed down, we must delve into the world of Mike and Abby. Well, during the ordeal with the toy animatronics, their house got pretty wrecked up. Windows cracked, and the place was basically a mess. Mike and Abby are likely going to have to move from that house as well as to a new location, which will likely be a further hurdle on Mike's finances. In the first film, Mike's priority was to get enough money to sustain himself and Abby. Of course, this is likely going to be a lot more difficult. And in the games, there's a significant time jump of 30 years. Clearly, we are not going to want to see an old, gray-haired man version of Josh Hutcherson, so I'm thinking the film would have likely had a smaller time jump, maybe by another year or two, maybe a few years. But I could also see them being more extreme if they wanted to have the movie going forward a significant amount, as they likely wouldn't want the overall film franchise to be at a slow pace. So, I'm sure Abby will likely be a teenager or something, Josh will get a few gray hairs and all, but overall they'll be still the same young cast everyone knows and loves. Mike, desperate to make money and discovering something new in the place, will eventually head to work at the attraction, while Abby will wonder what is going on with Vanessa. Once you put two and two together, it's pretty obvious they are going to get involved in looking at the new attraction, because I'm sure Mike will feel some kind of guilt about what he said to Vanessa when he got all macho and said, "Stay away from us," for a fully justified reason, because Vanessa didn't tell him the full truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But there's one more variable we have to consider in all of this, because after watching the FNAF 2 movie, there's one thing we learned about Mike, and that is that he is not the equivalent of Michael Afton, because Michael Afton is his own character in the film, his own man, and he is more to the dark side than the game version by a long shot. Let's just say that Michael is his own man. That means that it could be Michael, not Mike, that the security guard is for the film, so I'm going to have to explore it both ways because it is important to examine all the possible ways this could go down. Anyways, Michael Afton was a character introduced in the second film where he first gives Lisa, played by Mechanic Grace, alongside with the other folks, a tour of the area. He is later revealed to be the son of William Afton, obviously, we already knew that, but more shockingly, the sister of Vanessa. He survives the entirety of the film but gets bonked by Vanessa's macho friend when he says, "Where do you think you're going?" The result of all of this, I think most likely he would have been put in prison, as he's likely to be exposed for his crimes, but he wouldn't be staying behind bars for long, as eventually he would break out. He would likely be heading to the place out of curiosity surrounding the mystery of his sister, as well as his father and the new Springtrap, and would manage to get himself into the hot seat of the security guard worker. In that place, the Phantom Puppet, which is mixed by the soul of Charlotte and Vanessa, would likely be constantly haunting him alongside the other toy animatronics, but Michael, because he is pretty capable and knows what he's doing, would manage to survive through it, and would keep all the animatronic souls under his torture, and they would still very much be contained under his control. They could also be out to get him because it is highly probable they would mistake him for William Afton, as often it is like in games such as Sister Location and Ahem. I am getting there in just a moment, give me a tad bit of time. Vanessa, within the Phantom Puppet, would be constantly fighting for control, even saying to the puppet, "Charlotte, it's not him, that's not your father," relentlessly trying to get control of the unhinged spirit. Eventually, Mike Schmidt would be arriving there with his sister Abby, who would likely be knowledgeable of her friends and what's going on under the spirits, potentially even still feeling them through some kind of sixth sense. Mike Schmidt would at some point earn the hot seat, which would likely only increase Vanessa's urgency, where she would be constantly fearing for Mike's life, and Springtrap would now officially start hunting Mike. I could see a whole boss fight happening there with Michael, Mike, Vanessa, Charlotte, Abby, and Springtrap. Mike would likely still be protective of Abby, but really see how capable she is. I mean, this girl has discovered and exposed the truth of William Afton, snuck into a pizzeria full of dangerous animatronics, and used an animatronic chicken as her science project. What could she not be capable of? She would likely be the one who recognized the hidden souls within the attraction and help Mike hunt them all down, and eventually, because fighting in these films always causes major structural damage, the entire place would likely be on fire with Mike and Abby narrowly escaping. But I think it is highly unlikely Mickey Afton's story would end there, as he still has a lot left, especially when it comes to Sister Location. I believe the two Mikes could kind of function as doppelgangers in a sort of complicated way, perhaps being mistaken for one another, and I think we will learn a lot more about them and their connection a lot later in the franchise. Both would likely be constantly competing to get to the top. And regarding sister location, that brings me somewhere else. First of all, I've made earlier theories that Abby would die and become the possession of Circus Baby because from a lore standpoint, it would check out since Abby is literally the sister of Mike Schmidt. I also can't help but point out that Abby's name scrambled is literally Baby. However, now that we know who real Michael Afton is and of Abby's specific role and importance, I've largely toned down this theory regarding her death a little bit, but I'm still open to the possibility due to some foreshadowing. But the Circus Baby theory has at this point significantly shifted over to Vanessa. The only problem is during the dream sequence showing Circus Baby, her eyes are already enlightened, showing someone could already be possessing her. That could mean that similar to Michael, Elizabeth Afton ends up being her own character and her and Vanessa are entirely different people, which is a possibility. But if Vanessa were to possess Circus Baby, here's how it would play out. In the games, William Afton never really cared about his daughter Elizabeth, viewing her as his sort of twisted possession rather than any true love or care. There were several flashbacks showing Vanessa in dream sequences running and hiding from her father, and clearly he has always abused her. But it has also shown evidence in the dream sequence that Circus Baby was created in the earlier parts of the franchise, perhaps the 70s or the 80s. That means that it is possible William pre-developed the animatronic suit for his own daughter, adding her to the party of animatronics as his own twisted possession. I also noticed an interesting coincidence that I could point out in the actress Vanessa, and it is very important to note that this cannot and will not function as hard evidence for Vanessa eventually possessing Circus Baby. It is just a coincidence I wanted to point out. The actor has two things that Circus Baby animatronic has: the same color green eyes, and the actor's real name, ironically, is Elizabeth. Those two things could be sneaky little hints that were intentional, or they could be entirely random, so again, it's not a hard drive piece of evidence. The other hurdle to this theory is that Vanessa's spirit going from a phantom puppet to a circus animatronic is a very big leap, so it'd be a very interesting yet quick conclusion to jump to. The thing is, since the producers from the film surely know they may not be able to make 11 different films for all of the possible FNAF games, and 11 isn't even the total number, and yes, in the interview, the actors of the FNAF 2 movie didn't know the total number of games in the franchise.
First question. Yes. How many Five Nights games have been released in the main timeline?
Okay, easy. I have no idea.
You guys can steal.
We've got the main 6, and then there's Help Wanted, Security Breach.
This is all main timeline?
Yes. I really didn't know because it's very debatable on what people consider the main timeline.
We're gonna say 6. Incorrect. The answer is 11.
That means that likely they are going to speed the plot up a little bit. Perhaps there would be both the restaurant of sister location and the attraction nearby each other. I could totally see the two twinsy Mikeys fighting over which one gets scooped. And maybe that could make for a more interesting doppelganger plot narrative or something like that. So, I know that was a lot and there is a lot we still don't know about the FNAF films, but so far this is the basis and narrative structure that I've designed that could make for an intriguing timeline. Let me know what you think of this theory in the comment section below, and thanks for watching today's theory. See you next time.